Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be reviewing and discussing this new book that I am super excited about. Magnus Chase and the Gods of Asgard, The Sword of Summer. This is book 1 to Rick Riordan's brand new Norse mythology trilogy, and I'm so excited about it. So if for some very strange reason you weren't aware of what this book is about, this is a trilogy following a new set of gods, and we have a new protagonist, but it's all still in the same Percy Jackson Kane Chronicle world. It's like a saga because all of his books kind of interweave and intermingle together, and I feel like if you're not reading one of the series, you're missing out on the world. If you're planning to get into Rick Riordan, I would start with the very beginning. Start with Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief and then work your way up from there. In this particular storyline, we are following a boy named Magnus, and he finds out by some really unlucky twist of fate that he is related to the Norse gods. I'm not gonna tell you which Norse god it is. It's part of the mystery. It's part of what makes these books fun, is trying to guess who it is. Now with the Greek gods, it's a lot easier because we all know who those Greek gods are. Norse mythology, not so much. But if you buy it from Barnes & Noble, quick little tip, you come with this handy dandy, and I really appreciated this, Guide to Norse Gods pamphlet. There's only 5 gods in here. It was useful. I read this before I started the book. Probably not a good idea, because I figured out almost immediately who Magnus's parent was. Let's get back to the book because we are getting sidetracked. What was I talking about? I was telling you what this book was about, right? Because of Magnus's parentage, he is thrust into this world that he knows nothing about, and he is put on this quest to find a lost item that he needs to recover to save the world as he knows it, which is pretty much the basis for each of Rick Riordan's series. Something's lost and needs to be found. I do feel like that although that is a very generic storyline, especially for something that Rick Riordan has done, say, 2 or 3 times before, this I did feel was different. I didn't feel like I was reading a carbon copy of another series that Rick Riordan has already written. I did still think it was a unique twist on saving the world because something happens to Magnus that I was like, what? And I really enjoyed this. I did give it a 5 out of 5 stars. I did find that it mixed some great elements from all of his previous series. First person narrative that we all so immensely loved of the original Percy Jackson stories. That is where we see the wit and the humor and the sarcasm. And we get that again in this. We find out really what makes Magnus tick. But Magnus is 16 at the start of this book. He is not 12. So he's slightly more relatable, although Percy is still relatable. But because he's a little bit older, he has some different dynamics, different outlooks on life. I really thought that was a unique spin on the first person narrative. Was the Kane Chronicles in first person? I don't think we've heard from a first person point of view since the original Percy Jackson series ended. I don't think the Kane Chronicles is in first person because it is a dual perspective. I read that series a very long time ago. It was not my favorite. Partially because I don't know anything about Egyptian mythology. This book has a similar setup to the original Percy Jackson in as it's a boy who thinks that he's not special, and then he finds out, ooh, I am special, and my thumb really hurts. It's pulsing. I really loved that portion of Percy Jackson. I really loved learning about all the characters and how they were related to the gods. So the fact that I got another origin story was super cool. I really enjoy mythology, especially when Rick Riordan is the one teaching it to me. Magnus didn't just have 2 side characters. He had 4 side characters, and they were all very unique, and there was actually quite a bit of diversity among the characters in this book. From Sam to Harith. Let me just say, this book has some crazy names that I could not pronounce. There's that too. Yeah, that made things hard. And Harith actually had these magical abilities, especially when he got his staff. He was like a little miniature Gandalf. There was some magic in the Kane Chronicles, but it wasn't really present in the Percy Jackson saga. I do think this was a really great start to a new trilogy. I thought it was a much stronger first edition than the Red Pyramid was, so I really hope that this trilogy is better. I think it will be because I think Rick is doing something that's very important that he didn't do in the Kane Chronicles. I hope that the world is fleshed out a little bit more than the later books because it is Norse mythology. No one has any understanding of Norse mythology. We are taught Greek mythology in school. Most of us have a pretty good understanding of it and have heard of those gods and goddesses before. Same with Roman. I mean, I took a class on it in college, and that was after I read these books. I don't remember there being a Norse mythology college course. Let's be real. I took Greek and Roman mythology because I wanted to be back in the Percy Jackson world. That's why I took that class. I'm really hoping that mythology is fleshed out a bit more because I did find myself understanding that certain people or places or concepts were important, but yeah, I didn't understand what the place was. Does that make sense? What am I trying to say? I could recognize that Surt was a bad guy. Surt, bad guy. But because I don't know any mythology about Surt, I had no idea how bad or like how much Viking people feared Surt. Plus there was that pronunciation issue. I still wish that there was like a Norse handbook. Like where was one of these? I needed a Magnus Chase's Guide to Norse Mythology. That would have been really super helpful. And one thing that I did find really different from this series versus Percy Jackson, Magnus didn't have a whole lot of interaction with other demigods. And I understand why, based on certain circumstances, why that wasn't possible. This is going to be such an interesting series because of the instance that happens in the beginning of the book with Magnus. It's an interesting take on your main character. That is really all for my review. So for those of you who have not read this book, it's time for you to leave. Once you read that book, you can come back. So, spoilers are on now. A lot of us were theorizing, because his last name is Chase, that he was going to be related to Annabeth, and there was that scene in Blood of Olympus where Annabeth is talking about Uncle lives in Boston. And then we find out that Magnus Chase takes place in Boston. It kind of solidified a little bit that this is probably Annabeth's cousin. It is. A lot of us were really hoping to see Annabeth in this story. Wouldn't that be cool if Annabeth had some crossovers? Holy crap! Let me tell you, the excitement that I had when I read the first chapter and Annabeth was in this book. Thank you, Rick. Annabeth is coming to Boston to help find Magnus because he is missing. I was really hoping Rick was going to cross these series, and I really think he will, which is going to be so awesome. And this is why I think he's going to do that. Annabeth reaches out to Magnus. If you ever need anything, I'm here for you. And Magnus is trying to be like, oh my gosh, you don't understand my life. I've had a godly parent. It's so complicated. And we're all like, dude, she can understand that more than anybody else, and she can be so helpful if you just tell her. He doesn't tell her. By the end, Annabeth mentions again that she could be really helpful. That really makes me think that maybe there'll be a crossover. Annabeth's like, I have some friends, I know some people that could be really helpful. Want me to give them a call? I got them on speed dial. One thing I thought was really, really bizarre is that Annabeth gave Magnus her phone number. Since when do demigods use cell phones? Aren't all the monsters after you? I think that that's really what was lacking in the Kane Chronicles, is that people were so attached to Percy. I mean, I never felt the same connection with Carter or Sadie. I attributed it all these years to it being Egyptian mythology. I don't think that everything the Egyptian mythology was fleshed out super well. I would have loved to have a handbook. It would have, I think, made a difference. So I'm so hoping that the fact that I don't know anything about Norse mythology doesn't negatively affect this series. I think bringing in Percy will help this be a better series. Oh my gosh. These chapter titles were so funny. They were awesome. Chapter number, I think it's 38. Maybe it's 48. When I read this title, the happiness I felt is a little bit sad. Hearthstone passes out even more than Jason Grace, though I have no idea who that is. Yes. The fact that Rick admits to the fact that Jason is kind of sad sometimes and a little bit useless a lot of the time, made a joke about it, was so fulfilling in the weirdest way. Where did Magnus hear this name from? How did he know to compare Jason Grace to Hearthstone? Even though Hearthstone was way more helpful, and he was passing out from pure exhaustion, not from being slightly incompetent. Also, I totally spoiled myself and figured out who Magnus's fairy godly parent was, because I read this. Don't do that if you haven't read the book yet. That was stupid. In here, it says that Frey owns a sword that can devastate a battlefield without having to be wielded, and he is the god of spring and summer. So sword of summer. Did you see how I put that together? And on top of that, the sword on the front of the book is not being wielded. It is levitating above Magnus's hand. So I figured out that his dad was Frey before I even read the book. I really wish that we would have more characters that were demigods. We really didn't have any children of any other gods. It wasn't in the same volume as Percy Jackson or the Heroes of Olympus series. I mean, we just had really Magnus to hear from. Also, the fact that he's dead? What? I thought it was a joke at first, that he wasn't really actually dead, and he really is actually dead. Our main character, an undead warrior. Maybe that's normal in Norse mythology. I really have no freaking idea. Also, can we talk about the fact that the names in this book are really hard to pronounce? Hearthstone? I want to say his name is Heath, but I see the R, so I know it's not Heath. Samira? Sam. The worst word to pronounce in this whole book. And there are a lot of really difficult words to pronounce. This one. The primordial void, a mist that obscures appearances. Ginnungagap. Literally, those are just letters stuck together that mean absolutely nothing. Who would ever come up with that word? He has a glossary in the back of this book. All the names and what they are, or who they, whatever. But there's no pronunciation key, so I can't even sound them out. Eichthreimer, what? And Scotty? Elf Cedar? I don't know. Am I pronouncing these right? Enheria? So glad they sounded that one out. They call him an Enheria a lot. Jorgamund? Hlidskjalf? What? Hlidskjalf? The high seat of Odin? What the hell? Hlidskjalf. I don't know those right. Scandinavian words have a lot of like sounds to them. I felt like a lot of these words were supposed to have like sounds to them, and I was like, I don't know where to put the sound. Let's real quick talk about Sword of Summer because it can talk. What, really? We have a talking sword? That just seemed so Dora the Explorer. It had the backpack, except it was a sword, and it guided them through things, and it could talk. Does the actual mythology say that the sword can talk? Is that actually part of the legends, or is that something Rick Riordan just like twisted? I don't want to be called something that was long and hard to pronounce. You can call me Jack. Did think it was very strange that thousands of undead warriors all preparing for Doomsday, and they like are excited for Doomsday. Yeah, I'm here for Doomsday. I'm gonna die on Doomsday and I'm so excited. Bring it on. Yeah, come at me, bro. Why are you all so excited for Doomsday? I get that's like your purpose as undead warriors in Odin's court. That was another thing that I found to be very confusing. There was Odin's court where you went if you were an Aesir, and then there was Freya's court where you went if you were a Vanir, and there were like 3 other different places. Like there were a lot of places you could go once you died. Like once you die, you had like 6 options of where you could go. That just seems like a lot of like why were there so many places for dead people to go? I need to educate myself on Norse mythology. Tell me down below what you thought of this book if you've read it. I know it just came out. Thank you guys so much for watching. Until next time, I'll talk to you very soon. Bye. Magnus Chase and the Gods of Asgard, The Sword of Summer, Book 1. That's the longest title for a book that I think I've ever said. That is an obnoxiously long title. Look at how pretty this cover is. And in this particular, what am I trying to say? It's a very Jarek? It's a Jarek storyline. Ha ha ha. Words.